What's up, everybody? This is Ivan Ornelas, part of the Tectonic Takes, and we're bringing you episode 54, Going for the Gold, which is very fitting description here because not only did we beat a team wearing gold, the Olympics just came to a close. So being in the United States, we got plenty of gold to go around here. And I'm here with a special guest. You've heard from him before in the podcast, Danny Betancourt from L3 Pod. How are you doing?
Doing good, man. I'm doing fantastic, man. I'm stoked on this team that we're seeing, especially producing great results in the past 3 games in the span of a week. So I'm excited. Earthquakes wise, personal life, I can't complain either, man. So it's all good over here.
Yeah, it's August 9th as we're recording this on a Monday afternoon here in the Bay Area. Back to school season, so I'm sure traffic is going to get even worse in the next few weeks, and that could also apply for Quakes games too. So make sure to give yourself a little extra time if you're going to the games in these next few days or weeks.
And if any of my the listeners here are fellow teachers like I am, just baby steps. I don't know about y'all, but my throat is. It was my first day like teaching with students and stuff. And my throat is like, I can feel it gone already. So I might have to use a sick day coming up already.
Is this in person or Zoom?
In person now. Okay. We're in person with like the mask and this for now. We'll see how long that lasts before they decide to make some differences. But for right now, we're in person. I'm seeing the students and I'm pretty stoked on that actually.
Yeah, as of now, there might be a few other last minute changes to my schedule coming up. But first, the one thing is guaranteed is that I am teaching a completely asynchronous online course through a community college called Cuyamaca College over in San Diego. And the beauty of it is because it's completely asynchronous, it's all online, so I can teach it from here in Livermore. So that's very great. I'm thankful for that opportunity. It's going to be a challenge, of course, but it's nice that we still have this opportunity because first of all, online classes are a great option to have even when there isn't a pandemic, because there's a lot of people, particularly in community colleges, who have jobs, they have families to take care of, so that helps with their schedule. But especially now in this pandemic, I think there's a lot of students who are eager to go to in-person classes, even if they're wearing masks or whatever. But there's a lot of people who are happy to have this option for at least another semester, another year. So it's a good option to have.
For sure, man. For sure.
Yep. And during this pandemic now, it's been going on for almost a year and a half. And thankfully, one thing that has been constant is we've had a lot of Quakes soccer to enjoy. And lately, we certainly have been enjoying it. They've done something they've rarely done in the last few years, if not ever. They took 4 points out of a possible 6 from a road Cascadia doubleheader. They beat Seattle. They drew to Portland. With some newfound confidence from their late season success as well against LAFC in 2020, this was a good opportunity to continue that positive momentum. And when you think of positive momentum, you think of a great signing like Jeremy Ebobisse, and you want to greet him with a win as well. And that's exactly what happened with the 2-1 result at PayPal Park. And while Quakes remain in 10th place, they're just 2 points shy off the playoffs. And they made significant ground against that 7th place team, that crucial 7th place team. There's a 5-point gap that LAFC had. It's now shrunk to 2. They're in trouble, but for the Quakes, it's only going up right now.
You know, we always say the perfect remedy for any sort of sickness for any team is winning.
Yeah.
And this is like exactly what Quakes are winning. They're not winning per se the full 3 points, but they are gaining momentum. They are winning. They are scoring. They're not dropping points. They are gaining points. And in the way, the only reason we are tied, there's like a 3-way battle for 8th place right now. And the only reason for that is because of those points or those goals that the Quakes dropped earlier in the season. But you saw this. You saw this in the game on Sunday versus LAFC, a very prestige, well known team and known for their attacking abilities. You know, same thing with Portland, same thing with Seattle. All these teams are champions or community shield holders. So to be able to come back and take some points away from those teams who are like to be feared and reckoned with is a huge confidence boost with the Quakes. And you see this, and you saw it, and hopefully it just keeps on going with the next couple of games leading up till the break.
Yeah, and maybe there are some I wouldn't say asterisks, but there are some conditions to these games, like Sounders and LAFC and those two wins. They weren't at full strength, but you can only play the teams in front of you, and you just gotta go out there and win. This is MLS, especially in this current stage of MLS. Even though you are restricted financially, you have the three DP spots. Teams have found a way to build more and more depth, and we've seen some of that depth in teams like Seattle Sounders that have allowed them to have so much success in this league. So there's no reason to take anything away from the results that the Quakes have been earning.
Yep, Quakes are just playing the cards that were dealt to them, and if
Yeah.
it happens to be in our favor, so be it. You know what? That's the way the sport is. You can't win them all, and you can't lose them all. So I
Hmm.
can't complain right now.
Absolutely not. And while there's been a lot of fun on the Quakes front, before we go into this recent game here, that we're wrapping up a summer of international tournaments. The U.S. men's national team won both the Nations League, of course, and the Gold Cup, beating Mexico in both finals in very intense games. Both those games went to extra time, but USA had a very successful summer, at least in CONCACAF. And then with the Olympics, focusing on the soccer side of things, in the men's tournament, Brazil earned their second gold in a row, also earning gold as a host nation before having to sell for silver in London. Silver this time around went to the Spanish. Bronze, Mexico. There we
There you
go.
go. Finally, baby.
Yes. Yeah, it was nice. Mexico, of course, they beat Brazil in the 2012 London Olympics to get the gold. They didn't make it out of the group stage in Rio, but they redeemed themselves. They got bronze medal. They took Brazil to penalties, so very good tournament for Mexico.
Yeah,
At the expense of Japan, who finished in fourth, still a good showing for the host nation there in that tournament, and pretty good all-around tournament on that side of things.
absolutely.
And with the women's Olympics, some more CONCACAF success. Not the usual suspects. The U.S. women's national team so dominant, the four-time world champions. They had to sell for bronze, and the team that denied them gold got gold themselves by beating Sweden in a penalty shootout. Sweden settled for silver, and oh, Canada, the Canadian women's national team, they got a much-deserved, albeit a scrappy, gold medal. They weren't necessarily the best team in a lot of their matches, but they fought tooth and nail to get that gold. And they got a gold for not just a great team overall, but for a great player in Christine Sinclair. That was great too. I know I said great a lot in that last sentence. Fourth place was Australia, who the U.S. women's national team, they had to beat. It was 4-1 at one point, with both Megan Rapinoe and Carly Lloyd getting a brace. But Australia made it interesting. They made it 4-3. Nonetheless, USA takes bronze, and that added to an impressive medal collection overall, with USA just edging China on gold medals, and they finished with the most medals overall as well. So even though the USA found it harder in this Olympics than in some other Olympics past, they still, had a very successful tournament overall across all the events. And it was a fun summer to watch on the Olympic stage and with the football.
Yeah, man. I mean, we're gonna talk about that first with the Olympics. Some side. I'm just stoked to see skateboarding also making it into
Oh
like an
yeah,
official Olympic
exactly.
sport.
Hmm.
I grew up watching watching skating videos.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, with the
Tony
411
Hawk
videos.
Jam, all those video
Oh, dude.
games.
Tony Hawk. I remember going to X Games here in San Francisco at the piers.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so like growing up and seeing how much like I remember, when I first got my first skateboard in the 80s, 89 or something too, and I got it because we were kicking my dad was a security guard like at night at
Hmm.
some parking structure. So he kicked out because they're like skateboarding illegally, kicked them out, and while they were like trying to like scam not to get like in trouble, somebody left their skateboard behind. Somebody was like, "Oh, here you go," and it was a Tommy Guerrero skateboard, which I still wish I had. Most likely I'm going to buy a replica of it because it's very sentimental to me. But yeah, just seeing that sport grow and just the Olympics just grow and just getting, becoming, this huge event. It's always awesome. So congrats to all to everybody, athletes alike, and of course us for having a great summer with the Olympics. Finally, with the Olympics. Shout out to my boy Carlos Justice, or our boy Carlos Justice out there in Japan,
Yeah.
also covering the Olympics. So super
Daniel
stoked for him.
Slater as well. She did a great job
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah, hell yeah. So super cool. Man, Olympics. I mean, what can I say about, Brazil taking it, Spain? These are teams that I always expected. They're always the favorite on any tournament. When you have names like Brazil, Spain, France, I believe, like these are always teams to be taken serious, and they're always a heavy favorite. So just seeing Mexico winning that bronze, like, it meant so much. No, nothing to take away from Japan. Japan played an
Yeah.
amazing tournament, beating Mexico in
In the
the
group
group
stage.
stages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right on that. And even though it kind of sucks we didn't play for the gold. I did make a comment on Twitter saying, like, you know what? I'm just stoked because they did play with heart. And at the end of the day, that's what we asked for. It's just, for them to play with heart and to put some, some huevos, if you will, behind, and just winning or losing with dignity. Unlike the ones that played here in the United States. Again, no disrespect to those guys. I know the Mexican national team are always heavily criticized, both here
Oh
in
yeah,
Mexico and here in the
absolutely.
United States, for every little thing. I believe H said, if we win, we get criticized. If we lose, we get criticized even more. So it's like, you can't beat them with the press. And I agree with that. But it, this should be a wake up call. Yes, you're allowed to lose, especially for the United States. They're the rivals, whatever, neighbors. That is what it is. You are allowed to lose, but you have to at least put up a good fight. And what my take is, when I go back and I see these games, there was still something missing. Something's not right there in the Mexican national team. And unfortunately, USA got the better end of that package. But you know what? Good, because hopefully this will help MLS expand and bring more fans to the sport that we both love. And also, this kind of puts like a fire for Mexico. This kind of
Yeah.
it's a wake up call for Mexico, not just once but twice. Like, hey, dudes, what's up? You just lost versus the United States. You feel like you're like so far behind, but you know what? They
They
just beat
almost
you.
lost to Canada too.
Yeah. So this is a good wake up call for Mexico not to feel comfortable and keep on pushing, regardless if you feel like there's no competition here in CONCACAF. You still need to, step it up. And you know what? Maybe playing versus teams like, Panama, or playing those lesser tier teams, just to bring in money, maybe challenge yourself and play some South American teams, play some European teams. So that's my take about the Mexican national team. I just hope this is a wake up call and they start producing when the World Cup qualifiers begin in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, and to their credit, I think Mexico also in their preparation for the tournament, they did schedule friendly against Nigeria, but for several reasons, like Nigeria wasn't able to send in players like Wilfred Ndidi and those guys to
Mm-hmm.
that friendly, so it wasn't actually the best measure of their skills. It remains to be seen if Rogelio Funes Mori is that answer up
Yeah,
top. It looked like it for a time, but after that final, that question remains. USA won this tournament with 19 of their 23 players in their initial roster, at least, based in MLS. So that does add depth. That does bring more attention to the league, and that does bring more attention from Europe. You already had
yeah,
Gianluca Busio. He's off to Venezia. Sam Vines, he got snapped up, I believe, by Royal Antwerp in Belgium. And I can only imagine players like Miles Robinson. He's not going to be in Atlanta United much longer. So that's going to be good moves for them. I think Canada did emerge as well as the third best team in CONCACAF.
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's funny you brought up Funes Mori, because I think I tweeted this, that Funes Mori was one assist or one more goal away from me ordering a jersey with his name. I was this close, but then as soon as I said it, I jinxed it. I'm like, oh, you know what? Thank God, because
Save the money.
yeah, my pockets were not ready for that. But yeah, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, yes, I still feel Mexico is the strongest team when it comes to CONCACAF, but USA is right behind them. And you know what? And you're right. Canada is a strong third. And you know what? This is exactly what we need here in North America. We need more competition. We need more. We need teams to be in the same level, not just because there has to be a new king on a number one or anything, but this way it just pushes each other and makes us grow. And we're gonna talk about this guy, but there's a reason why they always compare CR7 to some dude who wears number 10. And they kind of just pushed each other to elevate each other. But that's a topic we're gonna get into in a minute.
Yeah, that's a good transition. You may have heard about this, but if somehow this is the first time you heard this news, this might blow your mind. Leonel Messi, he decided to no longer be a Barcelona player for literally the first time pretty much in his life. And he's gonna, most likely, it's all but official, he's gonna go to PSG. And I don't even know where to begin with this. Like, this is just sums up Barcelona's meltdown, their financial structure, like just everything that they've done wrong has led to this moment.
I mean, so every time the conversation, the question is always who's better, Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo. That's always been the question.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, it's not a fair question because they're two different players playing two different positions, playing two different key roles.
Yeah.
Another thing also that I feel is not fair is because why does it have to compare? Why can't you just enjoy both of them playing at the same time and seeing how
why
good
can't I like Kobe and LeBron? Why can't I like Peyton Manning and Tom Brady? Like, there's always a comparison, and Messi and Ronaldo can't escape that.
But with that being said,
I
do prefer CR7. I do prefer Cristiano over Messi. I just feel like Cristiano is more of a universal player, where Messi's just up on top. But with that being said, you give Messi the ball, you're screwed. But I feel like Cristiano, he's more everywhere. But yeah, it looks like Messi, the Messi Corporation in Barcelona couldn't reach an agreement, and we all seen videos of his devastating tearing of him saying that he's leaving Barcelona. Saying how he went as low as just asking for half of his salary in order to continue playing for Barcelona. And according to Messi, he didn't get no answers back from Barcelona. So it's a shame. Again, I'm not a Messi fan. I'm not I'm not anything like that. But that's huge respect, just showing how much loyalty he has. And it's a shame what Barcelona did with him. But somebody's trash is somebody else's treasure. In this case, if PSG picks them up, that's gonna be monumental. And it looks like
might be the best window ever. They've already added Gianluigi Donnarumma, Jorginho Wijnaldum, Achraf Hakimi, Lionel Messi potentially. And
you still got Neymar, you still got Keylor Navas, you still have Di Maria. You have all these war-renowned
Sergio Ramos as well. That's who I was thinking about.
You have all these names, who've gone and won, gold medal in the World Cup, who's gone and won the World Cup. They have won
Copa America
titles, God knows how many titles international and in club and international level. So, I mean, don't be surprised. What's today? Monday the 9th. Don't be surprised if out of nowhere this weekend, all these sports stores start wearing, or you start seeing more PSG jerseys, and you start seeing more PSG jerseys on stock around the stores. But with that being said,
PSG store in LA, it might have a few other locations in the United States very soon.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. But if I can just say one more thing, I'm not sure. I tweeted this in my Twitter, and anybody who follows me on Twitter might see this. I saw this tweet. I posted this tweet. I posted this picture, actually. Apparently, there's two, because it's not the first time, but there's two diehard Messi fans who go to the Quakes game. And when I say Messi fans, they legit have their car wrapped around in the Barcelona jersey colors with the number 10 here and number 10 there. One license plate even says, 10 Barca. So, I mean, I'm not saying that. I mean, you have it, homie. You're adding attention. So what I want to know is, if that's one of our listeners, if you can just tweet me, what are your plans? Like, what are you going to do? I just want to know. Just what are you going to do with your car, bro? That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know.
He's gonna probably take off that license plate and be like in Toy Story, "So long, partner."
It's a long part. It's going to be wrapped up in PSG colors on Sunday or on Friday's game. Watch.
Yeah, so I mean that news just shell shocks the world. Of course, you had the San Jose Earthquakes Twitter account joke about it, saying "rip every team's mentions,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and literally every team is in on this. This is really like a global like bombshell of the news because like everyone wants a little bit piece of this like messy
Yeah.
speculation. You have even teams from Ireland, a team called Bray Wanderers, I believe, where it's like Fabrizio, we told you not to spoil it.
Yeah. No, it's like, of course, like the Mexican media is having a field day. They're all like, "Oh, come to America," you know,
Oh man.
basically have him go Chivas since Chivas love the Argentinians. Like he's there. Mexicans love the Argentinians. Let's do this. But
Yeah, if they
yeah,
could
it's
convert Rogelio Funes Mori to Mexican, like
we're
who's
done.
stopping?
We're
Yeah.
there. We're there. But yeah, I feel like they're synonymous. Messi was synonymous with Barca. He was Barcelona. It's like imagine Michael Jordan leaving the Bulls, like in the
Yeah.
peak of his. I mean, Michael Jordan did leave the Bulls, but he retired, quote unquote, retired. If you don't
Yeah.
know the story, watch Space Jam #1. It kind of
Yeah.
explains it. Um, but imagine like yeah, or Kobe Bryant, like Kobe leaving the Lakers and going, somewhere else, you
Yeah.
know, in this peak of his career rather than retiring. So it's a shame. It sucks for the fans. It's not a good look for the organization, but it's exciting times for as a somewhat neutral soccer fan. It's pretty exciting because now I want to see the drama that unfolds because we all love drama.
Yeah. And there's certainly drama in this game against LAFC. We'll start with
Woo.
their lineup. Bob Bradley, he went with a 5-3-2 in the last game, but in this game, it looked more like a 4-2-3-1. So we had Tomas Romero in goal, another young Salvadorian who's been capped at the youth team and hopefully soon with the senior team. Their back line consisted of Kim Moon Hwan, Jesus Murillo, Tristan Blackman, and Diego Palacios. Their center mid partnership was between Eduard Atuesta and Francisco Hinela. And then their wingers were Brian Rodriguez and Jose Cifuentes. Carlos Vela, he kind of floated around that number 10 role, but sometimes he played as a winger. And then up top, instead of Diego Rossi, they started Cristian Arango. And Diego Rossi did eventually appear off the bench, along with Latif Blessing, Mamadou Fall, Raheem Edwards, and Danny Muzovsky. Their previous result was a 4-1 loss to Sporting Kansas City. I sense a pattern. We beat
Yeah.
Seattle after Sporting Kansas City beat them, and
Yeah.
then Sporting Kansas City beat LAC, then we beat them. So as much as Daniel Saloy doesn't seem to be our biggest fan right now, they've given us a bit of a blueprint to work on. So thanks, Sporting
Yep.
Kansas City.
Thank you. We'll take
But
it.
of course, Sporting Kansas City did beat them a bit more embarrassingly. It was a 4-1 loss. It was 4 unanswered goals to open the game. They got a consolation goal through Mazovsky to make it 4-1. Changes from that game shuffled the defense a bit. Diego Palacios played a bit more of a center back in that game. He used Raheem Edwards as a left wing back. And Murillo took Farfan's place in defense. And of course, the aforementioned choosing Arango instead of Rossi. And they're missing a couple defenders. This is where they were most vulnerable. Mahala Opoku with the left knee. And more importantly, I think Eddie Segura, he's that rock for them in defense, usually right knee. They were both out for this game. So what did you make of this LAFC team?
I mean, it's obvious that those players are a huge factor in the back and anchor because if all the plays that Quakes were doing were through balls, it
Yeah.
was just through balls, and that's how they were tagging it. So they knew exactly how to get them, and they knew exactly how to beat LAFC.
Uh-huh.
Yes, we did talk about this earlier. This LAFC is not the LAFC, quote unquote. But I mean, you still have huge names there in the field,
Yeah.
names who carry these teams. Um, just because he's an easy target. But obviously, Bela is the key point on that attacking force that LAFC is, and you just saw him not connecting with that left foot. Every shot he tried making, it wasn't weak enough. It was straight to JT, or it was hitting the ultras or hitting the bar across. So it LAFC definitely needs a nice little break to go back to drawing board and redo what they have to do. But you know what? That's on them. I cannot complain because this looks good for the Quakes. And again, it gives us confidence, and this confidence that we definitely need right now.
Yeah. Shout out to my friends Kevin Castro and David Alcaraz there in my group chat. We talk about all sorts of games, and they're LAFC fans. For once, the shoe is on the other foot because they've let me have it in some of the one-sided losses they've inflicted on the Quakes in recent memory. They were good sports about this one. They were a bit surprised that Carlos Vela didn't have a typical game he's usually had. He's not like last season, and I believe the season before as well. He was like Robert Lewandowski in fantasy Bundesliga. If you didn't have him on your fantasy MLS team, what the heck were you doing? Like he was just automatic goals and assists left, right. And he hasn't quite been in that same vein of form, particularly because, he had some injuries to start with as well. But, something is definitely not right with this LAFC team. And much like Tata Martino with Mexico, Bob Bradley is on the hot seat.
Absolutely. And you bring in a big name like Bob Bradley. You bring in, especially on these big teams, a team that has this huge following, and you have like these huge profile owners. Of course, you're under the microscope, and especially when you came off and you went on to win the Community Shield the first year you're an actual team. Like, that is impressive and is amazing. And we always talked about how LAFC
Supporter Shield, actually.
Yeah, the sports. I'm sorry. Yeah, the Community Shield is another one. That's another.
Congrats to Leicester on winning the Community Shield.
Yes. And who they beat over? I'm just playing. I know. I just got heat a little bit.
Yeah. I'm a Manchester United fan, so I appreciate that shade.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm also, side note, I'm a West Ham fan. So anytime like Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, anybody from there is losing, I'm always like to talk a little smack
in your face, Crystal Palace. No,
yeah. Take that.
All right, but back to LAFC.
Yeah, no, is a team that's super like under the radar, and they're in line to be the poster child for MLS. And they basically are with this quote unquote all-star game going on at the end of the month, being played in LA, being played at
Bank of California Stadium.
So it is going to be, it's the poster child, and for the poster child of MLS and the potential that MLS has, and for them not qualifying is very scary, especially since MLS is trying to become a world power and world renowned and try and get more exposure. There's a reason why there's going to be this this Liga MX versus MLS All-Star combination. All eyes are going to be on this game by the end of this month, and it's very smart. It's going to happen just a few days before the closure of the transfer window, because any last minute transfers can happen during that time. So it's not a good look for LAFC, but don't count them out yet. Don't count them out. We still have a lot of soccer to play in MLS.
Yeah, and I won't count them out based on this one game, but it was still a nice win. And the starting lineup that helped get that underway, these first four names, you can pretty much write them in Sharpie at this point. JT Marcinkowski in goal, back three of Nathan, Osvaldo Alanis, Tanner Beeson. And then Abacassis and Salinas, your wing backs. Yeah, Judson and Yule in there in midfield. And your front three of Espinoza, Chofis, and Cowell. For at time, you could potentially write them in Sharpie as well. But thanks to this new guy, Jeremy Ebobisse, he was on the bench today. That might not be the case for too much longer. Yeah, also coming off the bench, you have Paul Marie, Eric Remedy, who was coming back from an injury, Carlos Fierro, and Chris Wondolowski. And the changes from the 1-1 draw at Portland Timbers and Providence Park, uh, the main change, of course, was also the departure of Florian Youngworth. He started alongside Jitson in that game. Now we have Jackson Yule back from international duty, so he's going to be there likely for the remainder of the season as long as he's available. And with Ebobisse coming from Portland and Flo going to the Whitecaps, Cascadia giveth, Cascadia taketh away. That's just the way it goes. So
Yeah.
now Benji Kikanovic with the right thigh out. So that would be another factor to consider in this. Now we have so much depth in the attacking positions.
Yeah. And you saw how much depth it is, and you saw how much this affects the Quakes, because you saw the team playing with so much confidence, especially the top three. Where in the earlier, month ago, I was basically screaming at any, or Cowell, or you know, um trophies, or even like Espinoza to take a shot rather than pass it. You saw this going on now. And what I'm loving about this, and you saw this within the first 7 minutes or 10 minutes, was that Jackson Yule crossbar hit, where everybody thought Trophy was going to take it, was going to try to take a shot on that left foot, but instead he passes it back to wide open Jackson Yule. And you're seeing this team playing as a team, and you can never, no amount of money can ever fix that. If the team has chemistry and they're playing like a team, they're a force to be reckoned with, regardless if you have high-end players or not. And that's exactly what the Quakes are doing right now. And that's something that Almeida has always been good. It's creating great chemistry in that locker, or at least what appears to be great chemistry in the locker and in the field, and just playing for the jersey. And I love that. And it's great times to be a Quakes fan once again.
So if you're anything like me, Dane, which based on our conversations, you definitely are, you follow anywhere from 5 to 7 leagues with some level of regularity. Yeah,
Yep.
but so some great players will slip through the cracks. So I want to ask you, did you watch a lot of Jeremy Ebobisse when he was a Portland Timbers player?
I did not. I'm not gonna lie, I did not. I was kind of like, who the hell's this guy at first? Because when it comes to MLS, my bread and butter is usually just Liga MX.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course Quakes whenever Quakes, and that's about it. I truly don't make an effort, just full disclosure. I don't make it like an effort to go see how's you know
And probably your next
yeah,
tier of knowledge would be like U.S. men's national team players,
yeah,
Mexican players, other Latino
exactly.
players, like maybe Joseph Martinez in Atlanta United. So,
Yeah. The Argentinians definitely, and
mm-hmm.
the Peruvians, the Chileans are
Yeah,
playing over here. So that's pretty much my level, but it's not like in depth with this other team. So for me, at
right.
first, I was like, man, who the hell's this guy we just got, and
Mm-hmm.
why? And then after seeing Sunday game, after seeing him play, I'm like, okay, I know exactly who this guy is, and I can see why we need him. And dude, he is a beast. I am stoked that we got him. I'm not sure if it's just the team or if it was him, but he made the Quakes look so much better.
Yeah, Jeremy Ebobisse, he's one of those American players where he was very MLS good, but for whatever reason, he didn't get too many opportunities in the national team yet, and maybe that'll
Mm,
change in the future. He's
yeah.
still pretty young, but he's a very versatile player. He can play as a striker. He can play on either wing, and with a Portland Timbers, they've the way that they've built their roster, whether it be under Caleb Porter or under Giovanni Savarese, they've always had depth in attacking options, the likes of which until recently with the San Jose Earthquakes, we rarely have had.
Yeah.
And so that versatility, that ability to play with a Diego Valeri, a Sebastian Blanco, a Darren Asprilla, the Chara brothers, whatever combination of those players, that made him a better player, and he's been able to contribute to Portland Timbers' success in recent years.
Hmm.
So it brought me a lot of joy when I had a chance to speak with him in the press conference, that his initial reaction coming, whether it was a 10-hour drive, most likely not, maybe a 2-hour flight from Portland to San
Yeah.
Jose, that he was welcomed by fans and players with open arms. He's To paraphrase his quote, he said, "We all speak different languages, but in soccer, we speak the language of the sport, and we were able to get on a bright start from day one, and that is
Yeah.
a good reaction to have from a new signing, particularly from one MLS team to another, because I imagine Portland Timbers, they have a great camaraderie there as well. Perhaps Atlanta United, the situation got a little murky after the exodus, but by the time Remedy went from Atlanta United to the Quakes, there's probably still some semblance of good spirit there as well.
Yeah.
So it does make us feel proud as fans to know that these players who have played in other teams, they've played against the San Jose Earthquakes, that they hold the San Jose Earthquakes in such high regard that
Yeah.
they are looking forward to playing with us. And when you see big player after big player after big player go to Miami, go to LA, go to New York, go to Seattle, go to Atlanta, you maybe start to think maybe players don't want to play with San Jose Earthquakes, but the players that do come in, they seem to enjoy being a part of this family.
Well, one thing you also need to take into consideration is us as a fan. I
Yeah,
mean, yeah, we're a little bit in the media, but overall we are fans, and
absolutely.
we only see like in the field. That's the only
Yeah,
thing we see. We see in the field and little excerpts they put here and there on the internet. Of course, that now that we're press, we have more access to a little bit more information, but it's very limited. It's very quote unquote censored, if you will,
yeah,
what they tell us and give us.
yeah,
But players talk among each other. Players talk about what goes on in that locker room, how these players really are, what kind of chemistry there is, and what kind of vibe it is. So if it looks like everything's so biscuits and gravies as far as Quakes goes. So I'm pretty sure with a team like that, other teams see and they're like, you know what, I wouldn't mind playing for those guys.
yeah.
There's no, the jersey doesn't weight so heavy on these players. There's no pressure of like automatically performing right away.
MLS Cup or bust.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of the Quakes. Yes, there is a sense of urgency, but it's almost a little bit more relaxed because we don't. I mean, I said this before, and I still say it again. Our biggest player, our biggest superstar, and for the Quakes is our coach.
Yeah,
That's the biggest. That's the biggest player.
right.
So, I mean, we're playing for the coach, and that's what any team wants to do. You want to play for the coach, and I think that's what brings like some sort of excitement into the Quakes. So, yes, we only see the results. We only see what happens as fans, but we don't know what's going on in the locker. We don't know what happens when they go on their retreats and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, you kind of see it a little bit, when these players share like their Snapchat or share like their Instagram stories
Yeah,
and stuff like that. But I mean, to have a player coming from a different team, MLS, from the same conference,
yeah,
constantly playing, and then they come in and they're like, "Dude, this is awesome!" I was instantly greeted, and you heard the crowd go crazy as he took the pitch. So it's a great feeling as a player just to have that sense of belonging and having that transition a little bit smoother. And I mean, yes, he did some passes a little bit later. There was some miscommunications with like Cowell
hmm,
and, everybody. But you know what, dude?
it happens.
He only practiced for like a day and a half, maybe
Yeah,
2 days tops. And you can't expect this guy to be thrown in and be like BFFs with somebody, that you probably wanted to punch on Wednesday's game. Like
yeah.
you can expect that right away. But this is if that's just a hint of what's to come. Our Quakes just got way better. And now we're gonna answer this question later on. But I'll be afraid if you're in the Western Conference with Earthquakes and how they might finish this season.
We'll go over some of the stats too. So a few of these surprised me. LAFC led 16 to 15 in total shots. They had 6 shots on target to the Quakes 4. They had 52% of the possession. Passing accuracy was pretty even, but even that was a slight edge to them, 80 to 79%. 3-2 in chances created for them. Quakes had 6 corners to their 3. LAFC fouled us 2 more times than we did to them, 14 to 12. Quakes had the 1 offside to their 0, and both teams had 2 yellow cards. Murillo picked one up in the 10th minute, and Rossi in the 78th minute for LAFC. Cowell and Ebobisse got their yellow cards. Cowell in the 39th minute, and Ebobisse the 76th minute. So LAFC, they did have their moments, particularly in the second half, where you're just biting your fingernails thinking, okay, the equalizer is coming. We've seen this movie several times this season where,
Yeah.
yay, we scored early, we have a lead, we fight valiantly, but something happens. If not, like a perfect counterattack, contentious refereeing decision, comical own goal, a drone puts the ball in the back of the net, some other reason. Like it usually went that way, but we held on. We got a 2-1 win. What do you think stood out to you in this game, particularly in the first half?
I mean, it's funny because we were texting each other while this game's going on,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Oh man, I don't know they're gonna be able to hold him." Like, yeah, you're right. We need this third goal. Like,
Yeah,
we
usually
needed,
that's the case.
yeah, we needed this third goal just to like solidify the win. And yeah, we heard the scenario hundreds of times, and I said this millions of times, well, not millions, but I said this many times. 2-0 is the most deceiving lead ever.
Right.
I'm gonna say this in Spanish for my Spanish speaking friends out here. El
Yep.
2-0 es traicionero. The 2-0 is very treacherous because yeah, how many teams have gone, to halftime with a 2-0 lead, and then next thing you know it they lose you, 3-2. It's the most deceiving scoreline. So that's just why I was like, fudge, especially like that own goal coming in like the 40th minute or 40 something minute.
Yeah.
I was like, fudge, here we go. Here we
Mhm.
go. Just stop the half already.
It
And
also
then when,
hurt because it was Jackson Yule of all players to score that own goal.
yeah,
He's taken a lot of heat for his performances with the U.S. men's national team, and his saving grace was that, hey, he's one of the most important players for the San Jose Earthquakes. He's crucial for what Almeida wants his midfield to do,
yeah,
he wants them to operate. Yule rarely puts a foot wrong. He's usually one of our better players. But unfortunately, like his bad luck, his bad season, it continued with this own goal. And prior to that, he hit the crossbar too. Imagine
yeah.
if that went like 3 inches under the crossbar. He needed that goal, and unfortunately, his name ends up on the score sheet for all the wrong reasons.
And it is what it is. But these players are professionals, and of course, like that kind of media, that kind of press is going to get to them. But it's how you shake them off. Yeah, he might have had a horrible night with the own goal, but you know what? Let's look at the positive. The Quakes still got the 3 points, and he still
Yeah,
looked good out there. And you know
part of
what?
yeah,
And I was gonna say, and you can criticize this man, and by all means, I'm not a United States man national team soccer fan. I'm not.
mhm,
Okay, not
yeah.
hate him. Um, uh including Alexi Lawless, which you still owe me a beer, Alexi. Don't you think I forgot? You and me, San Jose, we're gonna have beers. PG, of course, we're gonna keep it PG. But that's besides the point. Of course, you're not good. You play more with your club. Jackson Yule has been playing with Quakes what 3 or 4 years already.
Yeah,
So you have that chemistry, you have a better understanding. You cannot just like instantly put some team a player for 2 weeks, in the training camp and expect them to be performing greatness in a completely different system. It took Almeida what 3 4 years also to get to this level now where he wants his team, and he's still tweaking the system he wants. So kind of harsh on Jackson Yule. Maybe that's just me being biased because he happens to wear the captain band for the team I root and have season tickets for. So I might be a little bit biased, but at the end of the day, you have to look at the positives. You cannot focus on the negatives. And this is one of the
that's kind of what
situations
we do
that,
sometimes, but we try not.
yeah, I mean, it's so hard to like look at the negatives only, but you have to be hopeful because if you
Not
don't have
negatives
hope,
only, but in the sense that like this is a podcast, like we do have to cover these games, and
yeah,
if an own goal does happen, like we do have to address it, and we do
yeah,
have to understand how it might influence a player. And I'm not totally worried for Jackson Newell because
yeah,
I know he has a good attitude. He
yeah,
reminds me, and not just because of the blonde hair or similar hair color, he reminds me of Tommy Thompson. He had a poor stretch of form last season too
yeah,
when he was playing more regularly. And a lot of people question what he's doing in this lineup. That's not necessarily the case with Jackson Newell for Quakes
yeah,
fans, but he still faced the media. He was like, you know what, like I just want to help this team succeed, and I'm optimistic about my abilities to help this team. I'm optimistic about my team's abilities to pick up my slack.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say in those exact words, but he's that
That was
kind
his
of
tone.
player. And
Yeah.
Jackson Newell, he adopts a similar level of belief that if Jackson Newell does stick around, like he could definitely be a future captain once Chris Wondolowski retires.
Absolutely. Once Shea Salinas and Chris step out, that's your number one choice right there.
That's a good point about Salinas because there's still no retirement talks from him. Like Salinas, he's so versatile and he's such in good shape. Like he's
Yeah.
got a couple years left, maybe.
Yeah, and I mean, he is the MLS leading assistant,
Oh
in the
yeah,
league.
he's the
All-time
Quakes
leading
leading
assistant.
assistant. I knew that, but that's pretty cool too.
Yeah, yeah. But going back to your original question about like from the stats in the game that stood out, I mean, I said I talked to you what about a month or 2 months ago, right
Yeah,
before the LAFC, about a month ago versus LA Galaxy game.
at Galaxy. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And I told you if it wasn't for the small little mistakes that Quakes have been doing, we'll
yeah.
be in the top, we'll be playoff contenders up there. But it's just these minor
You're
effects
right.
that we do. And I mean, these stats kind of
Tanner Beeson ended up being okay.
yeah, and this is with these stats, it shows you, yeah, Quakes are contenders, man. I mean, uh shots on target, they only had 2 above us. Shots in general, 1. Possession 42. Sorry, 52 to 48. We're right there with any top team. And that's one thing we have to we have to address the mistakes that Quakes are doing. We have to acknowledge that and we have to tweak it. But this is kind of numbers that gives us hope, and this is the type of results that us as a fan and as podcasters and going back there, we have to keep on relying and say, okay, this team is more than those mistakes. And that's, I think, going back to your Jackson Newell you know
My point.
piece that you're talking.
Yeah,
Yeah, your point is this team and these players are more than just the results.
yeah.
And you have to dig in. If you're just going to be superficial and look at the scoreline, of course that paints a different story. But once you go into detail, when you start to dissecting the team one by one, you're like, you know what? There's potential in this, and there's a reason why Almeida's still in this team. There's a reason why Earthquakes are still. It's never going to be an easy game against the Quakes, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, and I think Yule, unfortunately, he has to deal with the stigma that because he's older than Cal and he's only playing MLS, people start to panic and think he might have a U.S. men's national team career akin to Chris Wondolowski, where the negatives are what people remember with
Yeah,
him in a U.S. men's national team shirt
yeah,
over the positives. And I'm sure that won't be the case, whether he gets to play maybe 30 more times with USA or maybe 3 more times. I'm sure he'll be
yeah,
fine.
yeah,
Cal, thankfully, like people who are not Quakes fans, they are begging for Cal to play more for the U.S. national team. So
yeah.
that's a great thing.
Yeah. Well, it's exciting for Kate Cowell because I mean he's a teenager. He's still in freaking high school and playing pro. He's the buzzword from everybody. So of course it's good times. That always brings up concerns and just like a buzz of having him play for any team. But you know what? He's still young, and that's something we still need to acknowledge. He's still young. He's still makes those mistakes. He's still, he's still coachable, hopefully.
Yeah.
And if he gets to play for 1 more year with the Quakes or 2 more years or his rest of his career with the Quakes, cool. If not, I mean, we can only hope for him to keep on growing and have that growth mindset. And I don't know the gentleman personally, haven't talked to him, but from I've seen with his comments and stuff, it looks like he's pretty grounded and he has that growth mindset, which will only look good for the Quakes.
Right. So we do have to keep moving with this first half. The opening goal came from Cristian Espinoza. I didn't know what happened initially. All I knew is that he authored the free kick. It ended up in that melee of players, both
Yeah,
LAFC and Quakes, and then boom, it's in the back of the net. Cool. I at that point I didn't care
I'll
who
take it.
scored it.
Yeah.
But Nathan ended up being the goal scorer for it. I thought it was a header. It ended up being a poke with his cleat,
Little toe or something. Yeah.
and that's all right. And then in true Nathan fashion, he all made an equally impressive contribution on the defensive side of things. It looked like Carlos Vela. He scores those 99 times out of 100. But Nathan got in the way. He got him off balance. He got in the way of the ball hitting, JT Marcinkowski. The result, an easy catch from Marcinkowski or an easy gather. And Nathan celebrated that as well as he celebrated his goal. So that was good from Nathan. Not so good was his shot that was well high of the crossbar, but he did enough over the course of 90 minutes that you can almost forgive that.
No, and I think you said this, we need to, of course, you go and celebrate the goals regardless how they come in, but you have to celebrate those major stops, because essentially
it's almost as good as a goal.
Exactly. And we saw this early in the year with Alanis clearing it at the goal line. We saw Flo also stopping at the goal line and celebrating like it was a goal. That just bumps you up. And you know what? And you see JT with playing with more confidence every day as a goalkeeper. Him having trust, like if I screw up, my backline has my back. And you see this going on. And dude, with the addition of Nathan and that back line, Quakes defense is like 1,000% better. Like so solid now. It was, for me, this game, this first half, particularly, it was a completely new Quakes where everything was possible. It was again last year in Orlando playing at 10 o'clock at night. It was those Quakes where it was like anything's possible. A bunch of like Goonies, if you will, a bunch of nobodies are like making a ruckus, and I love it.
Yep. And the second goal for the Quakes, Espinoza was able to set up trophies. It was a simple finish in the end, but you had to be there to make it happen. 2-0. And then we also got, earlier than anyone expected, Jeremy Ebobisse made his Quakes debut for Luciano Abacassis. The stadium went wild for him. It was a great introduction for the new player. We learned later that Abacassis picked up a little bit of a knock. So that also explained why, particularly with Kid Cal receiving a yellow, he made that early substitution, Almeida, to bring in Paul Marie to balance out the team again. So you put in the attacking Ebobisse for the defender Abacassis, and then Paul Marie, the fullback, he came in for K-Cal. So that rebalanced the squad a bit. Sometimes K-Cal may be in a little bit of a tight leash, but in this case, like, you do understand the substitution, and you're also saving K-Cal for these upcoming games that he'll need to be a little bit rested for. You'd like to use him for both the Whitecaps and the Minnesota United games coming up. So we spoke about the own goal from Jackson Ewell, and that wrapped things up to make things 2-1. And overall, it was a great first half. It was the first half that, in the balance of play from the whole 90 minutes, the Quakes did enough in that first half that they deserved the win they eventually got, but it was far from guaranteed.
Yeah. No, and like I said, that third goal, the whole stadium knew that we needed that third goal. The whole stadium needed it, and we wanted it, and it was there. But luckily, we were able to pull off or contain LAFC, and especially that amount of pressure they put in the first 15-20 minutes of the start of the second half.
The Tuesta free kick. They brought in Latif Blessing and Diego Rossi from the bench. So that was an insta boost for them. So like, they were going to have something to say about how this game would end up. And they had their opportunities to equalize, leave San Jose with a point. And it was a great result from the Quakes to hold on to this lead.
Yeah, and unfortunately, it's to tell. I know it sounds like a cop out and sounds like a broken record, but again, Quakes, that second half is the tell of missed opportunities, creating so many opportunities, but not being able to finish for one reason or the other. But luckily, this time it didn't come around and bite us in the end. We ended up holding on to those 3 points, and a much needed 3 points, because I believe the comment was this the first win at home since like May or something.
So, yeah, that was, a stat that I hope we don't see again for a while.
Hopefully not.
Yeah, but we're able to hold on there. There were 7 minutes of stoppage time at the end of the game.
Insane.
Felt like a little too much. Carlos Fierro had a free kick opportunity. It failed to clear the wall. Vela had another good opportunity just before then. And then things started to get a little bit heated. Raheem Edwards, in particular, I don't know why he got so mad. I mean, thankfully, there was no more illusions about friendly Canadians when Canada played Mexico. There was some fights in that game too.
Yeah.
Raheem Edwards wasn't even in that Canada squad, but he had that same energy. He was shouting "good job," or like he was mouthing it anyway, sarcastically clapping. It was directed towards the Quakes. It was directed toward the referees. Like Quakes got in between LAFC and the referees. It was a wild end to the game, but Quakes did what they had to do. 3 points in the bag. You'll love to see it.
Yeah, and that's only a confident boost leading up versus was
Vancouver first.
Vancouver, yeah, Whitecaps first, which again should be a walk for the park for Quakes. But again, this is the Quakes, it is soccer, anything
and this
can
is
happen.
MLS.
It is MLS. It's chaotic like that. But again, if in this last 2 weeks, if we can just pick up more points and not drop any points, it'll be a great stretch for the Quakes, and hopefully we'll start September in a Quakes being the hot team leading up to the playoffs, which is something you always love to see.
Yep. Brian Ancheta Abawag, who is the admin of the Quakes Facebook group, he does a great job fostering that community there. He mentioned something very important. So since Remedy didn't get a yellow card in this game, he gets 1 yellow card removed from his record. So he's not in danger of a next yellow suspension going to this next match, which is really good. I think he may start one of those 2 games, either against Vancouver or Minnesota, because it's 5 days from Sunday to Friday when they play Vancouver, and then 4 games from that to play Minnesota.
Yeah,
so that's going to be helpful.
It's insane. Yeah, it's insane.
You know what else is insane? Quakes currently have the longest unbeaten streak in MLS.
Now that
not Sporting
is
Kansas City, not New England Revolution, not Philadelphia, not whoever else. That is unbelievable.
I saw that note here in our notes, and I'm like, wow, really? Like, how come?
Yes, really. Yeah. Everyone's beating each other up.
I mean, everybody's talking about 1-1, 1-1, and I've seen the memes where they replace versus Quake and just put 1-1. But you know what? I'll take 1 point better than no points any day. And look where we are now, baby. Look where we are.
Yeah, but the way those draws feel better, like gotta mix in some wins in there. That feels a little bit better. If it's draws and losses, then it's a winless run. A winless run is not sexy. So I'll take it.
It just depends how you wanna like twist your information.
Right. So we got a tough decision here for player of the match. Both of them made MLS Team of the Week. Cristian Espinoza and Nathan, they were by far the most voted options in our Twitter poll. Who would you pick for player of the match?
I'll give it to Nathan, actually. Nathan, because you said it, and I think I 100% agree with you. Blocking a goal or preventing the goal is just like scoring one. And if that's the case, if you use that into consideration, now you have him scoring 2 goals, rather than just one way or the other. And you can tell how important he has become for the Quakes back line, and just how much confidence he's boosting around his team. And a leader is only as good as your as those who you lead. So I feel like his influence is kind of dreading all over the team. You've seen how he's blending in already. He's high-fiving, he's hugging everybody in the back line. So I give it to him, but not to take anything away from Cristian Espinoza, because he did and he is playing magnificent right now and contributing tremendously with those 2 assists and this assist in this past game on Sunday.
So you would be in agreement with the results of that Twitter poll. Nathan won 52% of the vote. He is the audience's player of the match. Cristian Espinoza had 41%. I'm going to agree with the 41% because I think Cristian Espinoza, his first half, his 90 minutes, it was like when we first signed him, and he was a game changer then, and he's a game changer now.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm not trying to focus on the negative, but Nathan should have scored a second. So I had to factor that into consideration. But
No,
you could go either way with those two. Both played
absolutely,
phenomenally for the most part.
absolutely.
So I was going to ask you if you play fancy MLS, but now I know the answer is probably not, right?
No, I do not play fantasy
Next
MLS.
season, you'll have to join our league, though.
You know, I'm down. I'm
Yeah,
down. I'm
it's
a
worth it. It's
gam.
worth a shot, even if you fill up your team with all Mexican internationals and Quakes players and all
You never
that. Like,
know. You know, for those who don't listen to the L3 podcast or anything, you will learn that we're gambling people. We love to gamble one way or the other, and our thing is always when we do our pick'ems for the week, and we love that. People love to hear what we have to say, so we love to gamble. So if it involves winning, I'm down.
yeah.
I'm in. I'm
Does
in.
does Liga MX have a fantasy league?
They do. I believe they do have a fantasy league. I definitely seen them in different non-betting websites.
Yeah.
That way. I definitely seen it there. And then we do something called the esquinelas or the pick'ems, where we say what's the result going to be, how many goals and stuff like
Yeah,
that. And then
similar to the MLS Pick Six.
yeah, exactly. And then if you're the one the closest, you get like whatever jackpot, what it was that. And the L3 podcast, I must say, have won several times.
Okay.
That pick them. So we sometimes know what the heck
Paying your bills.
not paying the bills, but definitely paying for like some horchatas and a burrito.
Oh, there you go. Okay, there we go. Okay.
We'll take that any day.
Low stakes. Okay, fair enough. That's all in good fun. So we're going to briefly update our fantasy league. It's a currently three-way tie for first. These teams are all 13 wins and 2 losses. Terry's Soccer Gods, Emil Kirov's St. Wando, and my Martinez Manta Rays, an homage from my hometown Martinez. So Danny.
Yeah, Martinez.
If you're still wondering what Quakes player can I trust to have on my fantasy team, unfortunately, we're not getting the clean sheets, so JT Marcinkowski is not quite your best choice. Cristian Espinoza, I think our attack is going to be very varied in our goal contributions. I think Nathan's the move. If you need a defender and you have $8.9 million to spare in your budget, Nathan could be worthwhile. He's averaging, I think, 7.8 points per game, so that's really good. So that's definitely going to be my game plan going forward, especially on this bye week for the Philadelphia Union. I don't have Kai Wagner, so I'm definitely going to rely on Nathan. And a brief shout out to Fallas Faultliners. Of all the Quakes players, Quakes fans in MLS Fantasy this season, you're 11th out of those Quakes fans. So you're the highest out of all the people I've recognized with 1,267 fantasy points. Thanks for giving the rest of us in the Tectonic Takes community a chance by not being in our league this season. But you're welcome to join us next time for in 2022. Any MLS results from Week 18 stand out for you, Danny?
The one side I look at is what the ones that are going to be Quakes
opponents
upcoming, which of course is Minnesota on a week from tomorrow, Tuesday.
They beat the Dynamo 2-0.
And that's awesome because Dynamo's also in our conference, and I believe do we tie versus them, or
we are currently tied with Dallas and the Whitecaps.
Oh, okay.
Dallas and Real Salt Lake with 21 points. Whitecaps are near the bottom with Austin.
Yeah, and that's the other one I saw also with Vancouver.
They tied LA Galaxy, so good for them.
Yeah, way to go. Maybe our boy Flo is the one who influenced that 1-1, which I highly doubt it, but
they also were close to tying Galaxy in an earlier game. They had like a stoppage time equalizer, but then Galaxy scored again in stoppage time to steal the win.
Dude, that's one stadium I wanted to visit. Last time I was in Vancouver,
BC Place.
Yeah, there was a game going on. We didn't have time to go because we were restricted on time, but definitely is one of the places I want to go back and experience a game there because their stadium in that city is just magnificent. But yeah, those are the two that stood up to me because that lets me know how Quakes might be playing them this week. It is a little bit out of a week since there is basically like 2 back-to-back games happening in the span of like 3 or 4 days.
And briefly going over the standings here in MLS as of August 9th, So the top three in the West are kind of in their own tier. You have Sporting Kansas City, Seattle Sounders, and LA Galaxy. Only 2 points between those three clubs. Then fourth and fifth, you have Colorado with 28 and Minnesota with 26. So we can make up some ground against Minnesota United, somehow beat them. That'd be pretty cool. And then rounding out the playoff spots, Portland Timbers and LAFC each with 23 points, only 2 points ahead of the aforementioned trio of Quakes, RSL, FC Dallas. And then rounding out the conference, you have Dynamo, Austin, and Vancouver Whitecaps. But they are Whitecaps are at the bottom of the conference. There's only 5 points between us, so we have to take that game seriously and get 3 points. Eastern Conference, New England Revolution, they have a 10-point lead in first place over second place Orlando. And then it gets a little bit murkier with the rest of the playoff spots. New York City, Union, Nashville, DC United, and the Crew, all within 4 points of each other, third through seventh. And then the team that's next closest to them in the playoff race is eighth place Montreal with 23 points. Then there's a bit of a gap between them and ninth place New York Red Bulls. And then the likes of Inter Miami, Atlanta United, and Toronto are going to try to recover from their slow starts this season.
Right. No, and yeah, these upcoming games are going to be good, especially the one versus Manchester. I'm sorry, not Manchester. Sorry, versus Minnesota United. I feel like they always leave a bad taste in our mouth, one way or the other, especially for this past 2 or 3 seasons. So just if we can sneak 1 or 2 points or 1 or 3 points away from them, that'll be amazing. And also, that's for me, that's going to be a good matchup to watch, because Minnesota and the Quakes, in my perspective, I feel like they have very similar game plan. The man-to-man marking, super high pressure attacking gameplay. So it's very similar to Quakes. So it's always great to see like two teams playing the same tactic go against each other.
All right. So we do have some live upcoming games coming on, not just in MLS. And thankfully, Danny is here to give us a little bit of a scouting report on the Liga MX teams that are coming up against MLS clubs, both in the Leagues Cup and CONCACAF Champions League. So we don't have a whole lot of time. So since we are a bit like an hour plus into the podcast, so let's see, how do we want to do this? So I'll name the fixture. Give me a brief, like, okay, 1 to 2 sentences on how each of the Mexican teams are doing so far, and then give me your like pick, like which team do you think will win this match?
Just a backstory on that.
Yeah.
The Liga MX, they're wrapping up their third week.
Yeah, they're 3 games in.
Yeah, they're wrapping up their week today as we speak right now. So they're still kind of starting their season, while the rest of MLS is already like halfway through the season.
Right.
So when it comes to forms, that's something else to take into perspective. But
yeah,
tell me which teams are playing. I'll tell you how they're doing and how I feel about it.
Yeah, so first up on Tuesday, August 10th, we got Sporting Kansas City versus Club Leon, 5 p.m. Yeah. All time specific. So what do you think of that one? Sporting Kansas City, you're doing very well.
Yes, especially with the likes of Alan Pulido in there. Sporting FC should be able to win this game, the first one. Leon is they're getting it together right now. They just won their second game, lost the first one. They're still kind of recovering from that championship hangover that they had 2 tournaments ago.
Yeah, because Cruz Azul were the more recent ones.
Yeah, exactly. And then prior to that was Leon, and last tournament they had a horrible performance. But Leon's going to take them a little while to re-spark that magic. But for this one, just coming in, like you said, it's a red hot team. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sporting KFC takes away some points on that one.
Yeah, I think I believe this is like a knockout tournament. So yeah. But next up, we got Santos versus Tigres. So we had the MLS team winning that first matchup. I think when it comes to Santos versus Tigres, Sounders are very formidable, but a few key injuries could play into Tigres' hand here.
And one thing you need to look at Tigres has a brand new coach for the first time in like forever.
Oh yeah, that's true.
They have a brand new coach with the likes of El Piojo Herrera, who was previously, he's been the Mexican international coach. Most famously, he's been America's coach. He's also taken Tijuana to great runs. So he is a very world renowned coach. And for this one, yeah, because of injuries and because of Leon and the amount of players they have, I feel like Leon has the upper hand on this one over Sanders.
Tigres has the upper hand.
I'm sorry. Yes, yes. It's when it's the cats, man. It's a tiger and a
Yeah.
lion. What do you expect from me?
Yeah, Tigers and Lions and Bears on mine.
Oh
No,
my.
Bears are a football team, thankfully. So we're gonna be alternating here between two competitions on Wednesday, August 11th. The first game we have coming up, still in the Leagues Cup, New York City against Pumas. What do you think of that one, Danny?
Dude, Pumas is off to a rough start, man.
Ooh,
And
more
and
cats.
yeah, yeah, exactly. They're winless so far,
Mhm.
with one draw and two defeats.
So
Usually
maybe,
Pumas,
mhm,
yeah,
maybe New York
usually
City
Pumas.
gets this one, but go
Maybe
ahead.
Pumas is usually known for starting hot at the beginning of the tournament. This case is the complete opposite. So I do
Wow.
believe Red Bull might have the advantage on this one.
New York City FC.
Dang it. Yes. New York City.
And also for you, Danny, the second half just started. Atlas are up 1-0 over Pachuca.
Of course they are. Of
Yeah.
course that is.
Yeah. And also on Wednesday, the later game, we have the first leg in the CONCACAF Champions League semifinals. So this is the one with both Mexican teams. So you'll
Mhm.
know a bit more about this one. Monterrey versus Cruz Azul. This is a big one.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Cruz Azul again, there's something that happens with it's like a championship hangover
Hmm.
where Cruz Azul is off to not so ideal start, but they have been in the last possible nine. They have collected. No, I'm sorry. In the last possible, yeah, I was right. In
Yeah.
the nine points, they were able to collect four.
All right.
Dropping all 3 points in the first one, drawing and now winning. So Cruz Azul, it's a force to be reckoned with, but I mean, Monterrey just has those players. They have that money to back it up. This one, I will give it to Monterrey
Okay.
over Cruz Azul just because of the whole theory of or the mindset of the championship hangover.
And I believe, if I have this correctly, that the first leg will be in Monterrey too. So,
Magnificent stadium, by the way.
oh yeah, I hope to go there someday.
Same.
Um, so now switching back to the final of Leagues Cup quarterfinals, Orlando City versus Santos Laguna. Santos Laguna, they've been one of the tougher teams for me to read in recent years for
Yeah.
Liga MX.
Yeah, completely. With them, they're not very constant, which makes them super dangerous because you don't
Oh
know
yeah,
what version you're gonna get. But I mean, one player to definitely keep an eye out when it comes to Santos is their goalkeeper, Acevedo,
oh
who there's a lot
yeah,
of speculations that he is the contender for defending Mexico between the poles once Ochoa steps down. So
yeah.
that's my key player to keep an eye out for him. But again, Santos, like you said it, they're not very constant. Like in their last three games, they won the first game, but draw in the last two. So they're not very constant. And for me, that makes them a more dangerous team because you just don't know how to play this team.
Yeah. I think Orlando City, they're starting to stutter a bit in MLS. Like they are still in a really good spot in terms of making the playoffs. But I think also since they're closer to the teams below them in the table, then they're probably not going to catch New England Revolution in first
Mm-hmm.
place. Maybe their focus will be diverted to their league game coming up. In the future, although I do believe they have a bye week this week. Nonetheless, I think that might catch up to them. I think Santos could be the surprise in this round and they'll knock out Orlando City. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
thinking, two Liga MX and two MLS teams come out on top in that first
Yeah,
round.
absolutely.
And then lastly, we have Thursday, August 12th, 7 p.m. Club America against the last MLS survivor in this competition, CONCACAF Champions League, Philadelphia Union. What do you think will happen in this one?
I mean, if you guys read my Twitter handle, it says I don't claim it, but I back it up, and that's America. So
Mm-hmm.
my heart cannot say. There's no way I'm ever gonna say an MLS team is gonna defeat America, and I don't see the Union doing it
Mm,
over this America, and that's just me being
yeah.
biased, and I agree with, and I take
Even
the
without being
heat for that.
biased, like well, I guess I can't be completely unbiased about Club America because I am a Chivas fan,
Yeah.
but I think America, they're more well built right now. I think Philadelphia Union, they're having a good season. They've had some good contributions. Like I said, Kai Wagner, I think he's the best left back in MLS right now. Andre Blake is still one of the better goalkeepers in MLS. They're going to need him against Club America to keep it close at least. But I think with players like Mark McKenzie and Brennan Aronson, they've recently gone to Europe too. I
Mm-hmm.
think Philadelphia Union are in this weird place where like they're probably a top 8 team in MLS, but like you can't really envision them winning a competition, whether it be the CONCACAF Champions League or an MLS Cup. So
Kind of like Atlanta FC after winning that winning it all on their first year, and then kind of having that team rip apart, and then throwing this random people to face teams like America, like Monterrey, and the likes of those teams.
yeah,
So
and to their credit, they won the Supporter Shield last year, which
yes,
is
they did.
still really impressive. And I think it's more impressive because they did it in a pandemic, even though some people think that it was worse because they faced the same teams over and over again.
Yeah,
But regardless, that's something completely different than winning in a tournament style match. So I think, yeah, I think we could see Monterrey versus America, which would mean Monterrey, after taking out a team from Mexico City, they had to face
mhm.
another one.
Oh, come on. That's true. But the better one from Mexico City. They'll have to defend or play versus the best team in
And
Mexico,
then,
period.
aside from the Quakes games coming up in MLS, Saturday, August 14th, some games that stick out for me. A little bit of a scouting mission for you Quakes fans. Check out Minnesota United versus LA Galaxy at 3 p.m. Pacific. See what Minnesota United can do against our main rivals. Um, Maybe it wouldn't be the worst thing. I know I might get some criticism for this if LA Galaxy did beat Minnesota United. Just sticking with that theory of like, if the team that plays our next opponent before us beats them, we have a blueprint that we can apply for the next game. New York City versus Inter Miami is also an interesting one at 5 p.m. Also, FC Dallas versus Sporting Kansas City at 5:30. I'll keep an eye on them, particularly because Dallas is close to us on the table. And with
Mm-hmm.
that logic as well, Austin, do us a solid, beat Real Salt Lake at 7 p.m.
Please.
Yeah, that would be ideal. Sunday, August 15th at 1 p.m., you have Atlanta versus LAFC. Atlanta United, they're looking better. LAFC, not so much. So we'll
Yeah.
see if their slump continues against the red and black stripes. And then the Cascadia rivalry is renewed with Portland
Yes.
Timbers versus Seattle Sounders, 5:30 p.m. to close the weekend. Buys for the Philadelphia Union and Orlando City who are involved in those competitions midweek, and just a regular bye week for FC Cincinnati. No one's going to accuse them of being involved in
Yeah.
CONCACAF competitions just yet because
Yeah.
they're not that great.
They're still
But
starting it out.
yeah, so more focusing on the Quakes again. Friday, August 13th at home versus Vancouver Whitecaps, 7:30 p.m. Another home game on Tuesday, August 17th at home versus Minnesota United. That would be 4 games in the space of 2 weeks prior to this bye week. So they don't play during my birthday week of August 21st, unfortunately, but they're back August 30th. They're at Dignity Health Sports Park to face LA Galaxy at 7:30 p.m. And there's 13 games scheduled between September 4th and November 7th. So with those 3 games as well in August, that means there's 16 games left in this regular season. So the Quakes have played 18 then. So we're pretty much at the halfway point. Overall, like there's going to be a couple games where we think that we should have gotten 1 point when we ended up losing. We should have gotten 3 points when we had to get one, but we still have a chance.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they are able to get you a W for your birthday on that August 20th game.
August 17th will be the closest to my birthday.
Hey,
The
there you go.
Minnesota, yeah.
When is your birthday, by the way? You say August
August
20th.
21st. I
Oh, cool.
turned 26.
Oh, cool. I'm August 31st. So hey,
Oh, there we go.
there you go. 10 days difference. But yeah, man, super competitive for the Quicks coming up, especially these teams playing these teams regardless of what position they are, but just having so many games back to back. Players need some time to recover. So it is going to be tough for the Quicks with this homestand coming up. But as a season pass holder, I'm all for it going there, especially on the Tuesday and seeing some Quakes action, especially for Minnesota.
All right. And we're an hour 20 into this podcast. So I'll just go over some of the main points to consider for the Vancouver Whitecaps game. And then, Danny, I'll ask you for your prediction.
Okay.
So, Florian Youngworth, he could potentially come back to bite us. He knows our system very well. So he'll probably be having a big role in how the Vancouver Whitecaps will be set up against us. I believe complacency could be the biggest enemy in this game. Being LAFC does not ensure victory over a traditionally weaker opponent. They've landed some sucker punches against us before. Vancouver Whitecaps, they knocked us out in the playoffs recently. I believe it was the 2016 playoffs. And they also got a potentially devastating win down the stretch in the regular season 2020. Quakes managed to survive and sneak into the playoffs. So Vancouver Whitecaps, they can beat us. And I'm very intrigued to see their acquisition of Scottish attacking midfielder Ryan Gold. He was once labeled the Scottish Messi. He played a lot in Portugal. He transfers from a Portuguese side called Farense. They were relegated from the Liga NOS in the 2020-2021 season. So with all that said, even though Whitecaps are near the bottom of the table, this is a very crucial game that Quakes, they have to have that same mindset. So what would your prediction be?
For this one, just coming off that, just winning LAFC doesn't necessarily guarantee a win versus the any team. Period.
Yeah,
So with
exactly.
that
It's a
being
new
said,
test.
for this one, I see more of a draw. Yeah,
You see a draw.
I see a draw. I see maybe like your typical 1-1 draw, and I feel like the Quakes are going
Oh
to be
no.
focusing. I feel like Quakes are going to focus more on defeating Minnesota.
All right. So with that prediction, I convinced you too pessimistic. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I think this is definitely not necessarily a must win anymore because the Quakes do have some wiggle room, although you're still chasing the playoff spot. I'm going to say, though, that winning this game would make things a lot easier. So I think they're going to be prepared. I think, and maybe, just maybe, we get that clean sheet. I'm going to go a 1-0 win.
1-0. All right.
Because I think the Vancouver Whitecaps, Florian Youngworth, he's going to be compact. He's going to be marshaling their midfield and their defense. It's going to take maybe another set piece goal from Nathan to settle this one.
Nice.
All right. And then you had a couple questions. We got a lot of fan questions from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord. Thank you all so much. For those of you who sent multiple questions, I'm just going to answer one question per person today. And we're going to start with one that you wrote, Danny. So I think the one we'll focus on here is, why is Lucho starting ahead of Marcos Lopez? And since you asked me this, I'll answer it.
Yeah.
I think it's not as easy as Lucho for Marcos Lopez because Abacassis mostly plays on the right-hand side and Marcos Lopez traditionally plays on the left-hand side. So I think the decision is being between Shea Salinas and Marcos Lopez. And I think Shea Salinas is just playing very well in a very understated role, that bit of a glue guy on that left-hand side that Marcos Lopez is just going to have to bide his time. I hope to see him more off the bench. I would prefer to sub him in over a Paul Marie. I think Paul Marie is one of those players where, like, he's a role player. Like, he's not a player that, with all due respect, you're not investing so many minutes on him because you think he's going to be this next star. You think he's going to be the best right back in MLS. Marcos Lopez can not only be the best left back in MLS in a few years' time, like if he continues on his trajectory, playing with the Peruvian national team and playing well for us in a few years' time, like he'll be good enough to play in a potentially stronger or on par league. Maybe he could do a job at several Mexican clubs and in some European leagues, I think, because he's still got so much upside and so much room to grow.
Mhm.
So I think right now it's just a matter of it's Shea Salinas's moment right now, but maybe in one of these next two games, it's going to be tight transitioning from Vancouver to Minnesota. Even if both games are at home, maybe Shea Salinas gets rested, and that's Marcos Lopez in to get that starting spot he usually has.
Cool. Right on.
All right. Now I'll turn over the next question to you. So at Brochar on Twitter asks, um, how's Nathan? Matias said he was fine, but he went down twice with a head injury. Any reason you think to be concerned about Nathan's health?
Um, no, at the time, I think MLS and just as far as our sports culture here in the United States, we're pretty much on top of any sort of head injuries. And just in the
Concussions.
soccer, yeah, and especially the soccer community, we've gone way better in the past decade, 20 years in kind of talking on that and making sure protecting our players number one. So I wouldn't be super concerned. I feel like the one on the game on Sunday where he took the longest, I feel it was just mostly him to eat up some time, which I feel like he was successful in doing that, adding, taking away 2 or 3 minutes away from the clock. So I won't be too concerned. I feel like based on the game on Sunday, it was just him just eating up some time.
Yeah, and I know Almeida, like I think a good amount of managers, he's not necessarily going to be rushing to give us injury news about players if he's not too serious.
Hmm.
So hopefully that's the case. Uh, I think we would definitely not be as positive in this podcast if we believe that there was a significant chance that Nathan would miss one game, let alone like 5 or 10. So
Yeah.
next, we got Luis Velazquez. How can we utilize Ebobisse better? There's so many missed runs where Chofis or Espinoza kept playing backwards instead of picking him out. I think might be just like something that comes with time. Like you said, like he's a new signing. You didn't have too much time to practice with these players. So we'll see how it looks in the next few games and if that improves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jessica Shea, do you predict Quakes will make the playoffs? And if so, how far do you think they will go? And JPM on Twitter, one of our other followers, referred to us to this predictions page from 538. Somehow Quakes have a 29% chance of making the playoffs. RSL have 40% chance. That's an 11% difference solely based on goal difference. So there had to be
Hmm.
more there. I think based on what we saw today and based on what we see from the table, I think 29% might be a little bit harsh. I think right now Quakes maybe have a 50-50 chance of making the playoffs at least.
Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
I feel like Quakes are going to make it to the playoffs. I mean, if we were able to make it last season after having like 3 or 4 games of just being defeated with horrendous scores, I don't see why Quakes cannot repeat that same thing this year. So I feel like Quakes will make it. As far as how deep, hopefully, I see him going second round, maybe, depending on how they finish on this one. So I feel like that's too. You know what, Shay? I feel like that's too early to predict that. Baby steps. And let's just predict that Quakes will make the playoffs. Um, maybe sixth position.
Yeah, so let's see. I think that my main concern though is that Quakes did make the playoffs last year, but there was 8 teams from the West that made the playoffs. This time it's just 7. So I
Hmm.
think if the Quakes do make the playoffs, 6 is probably the ceiling, maybe seventh, unless they have a completely incredible end of the campaign.
Yeah.
But even if we do make the playoffs, most likely we're probably facing Sporting Kansas City again, or Seattle Sounders, or maybe LA Galaxy. And
Hmm.
I'm not quite ready to say that the Quakes will knock them out in a playoff one-off match, but making the playoffs 2 seasons in a row, that has not happened in a long time. I think that's very important. And even
Yeah.
if we get knocked down the first round, that's something.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Really quickly with my good friend Trevor Wojcik. I
Hey,
did
shout
meet
out.
at the game uh, on Sunday. He's very concerned with Siad Haji no longer being played, and it does baffle me. I wish I had more to say other than like I think unfortunately his game time is going to be cut into a little bit more now that there's another attacking option to juggle. But I think it's still a long season. I don't think just because players like Tommy Thompson and Siad Haji, um, maybe a Jack Scan if we don't see him again for a couple games. I don't think they're going to be permanently frozen out of the squad. It's just going to depend on the situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you're competing versus players who like are solidifying their position up there. So it just you might not fit the system right now, but you know what? You never know. Some player might get injured. They might have to take a break for a game or two, and that's where you have your opportunity. So just grind it out there. But yeah, it's just some players are better form, and you gotta remember what is best for the team. And Almeida, we trust Almeida to make those decisions for us.
Now we got some Discord questions. Nico, aka Trophies with Cheese, asked,
Nice.
"What does the future looks like for Tommy Thompson, Andy Rios, and Syed Haji?" So, like I said with the last question, we're going to take a wait and see approach with Syed Haji. We saw some good things with him early in the season, but there's only so many starting roles, so many players that can come off the bench. He's going to get another opportunity down the road. I see Tommy Thompson going in a trajectory of Shea Salinas, where there's going to be times where he's going to be a locker room presence. He's going to be a presence from the bench. He's not going to be always on the field, but sometimes his versatility will come in handy. And who knows? Maybe injury or suspension happens that opens the door for Tommy Thompson to be like Shea Salinas is right now, one of those nailed on starters, simply because he played himself into that position. And
Yeah.
lastly, for Andy Rios, I think there's a sense of the Quakes paid so much money for him that there's incentive to keep playing him whenever you can. But I think if Jeremy Ebobisse hits the ground running, I think the writing will be on the wall for him that sorry, not sorry, it just hasn't worked out. Like I like Andy Rios as a person, but as a player, like maybe this is just isn't the right fit, and that happens. Like it happened with Innocent Emergara, who recently retired a few weeks ago. His time at the Quakes was
Mm-hmm.
checkered to say the least, but I hold no ill will to him, and I hold no ill will to Andy Rios. Anyone who puts on a Quakes jersey, like I'm thankful that they're part of this community for whether they were here for a season or longer. So that's how
Yeah.
I look at it. We got a couple more questions. ATB Pita 15 asks, should we be concerned about the over reliance of playing through the wings? Have you noticed that, Danny?
Yeah, I've definitely noticed that. Definitely saw it a lot in this past game where they were playing uh they were feeding all the attacks by the wing, and it looks like it was Shea Salinas leading the majority of those attacks and enjoying that. So um I wouldn't be concerned.
I mean, it's the formation. It's a 3-4-3.
Yeah,
Like, what are you gonna
it's the
do? Play through
formation.
the middle?
Yeah, and I mean, I wouldn't be so concerned because one thing I did notice about Almeida is that he picks his formation, his players based on how it was best to defeat this opponent. So that unfortunately it looks like for the past couple of games, that's what has been given more results and more formula. But Almeida's one of those players, or is one of those coaches who is willing to change it up when time is needed, putting players in different positions, and we've seen it. And so at the end of the day, it's whatever works. And if this playing by the wing was working, I'm not complaining.
All right. And I did say that in jest. Like, I don't want to be overly dismissive of ATB Pita, but I do want to also agree with him in the sense that I don't want the Quakes to be too predictable. And something that does make me nervous is that you need to pick and choose when you play at the back. Like it's okay to just boot it out. Sometimes that's the safest scenario.
Yeah.
I know it looks prettier and it looks better when you can retain possession from the back, but the most important thing, especially when there's been so few clean sheets, prevent a goal whenever you can. And then we got a few more questions. We'll ask 3 or 4 more. Uh, Clavin asks, we have a lot of talented midfielders, so how will we fit them all in the game? Uh, so if you're going with wingers, I think it's up to Jeremy Ebobisse to displace one of Cowell, Espinoza, or Chofis. Likely either Cowell or Chofis. As for the midfielders, you have Jackson Newell, you have Remedy, you have Judson. It's going to be two of those three. I think occasionally you'll get Jack Scan or Siad Haji to fill in if needed, or maybe even Tommy Thompson. So I think that right now Matias Almeida has pecking order. His starting limps haven't changed too much in these last 4 or 5 games. And I think it's a good problem to have. Like eventually we're gonna need this
Yeah.
depth. Like we're not gonna be talking about like, oh man, we're not playing this guy off the bench. Like he has to come off the bench because he can't start. We're gonna be like, oh, players A, B, C are injured. Thank goodness we have players D, E, and F. And
No,
if, go
and
ahead,
yeah, I
Danny.
think you said it's a good problem. No, I just want to agree. I think it's a good
Yeah.
problem to have players to admit there because you cannot just say, okay, this is my starting formation and then my 2 substitutes that will cover up because injuries will happen. So we need to have those options. So I think it's not a bad problem to have at the time.
All right. So Afraid asks, why was Cade playing so passively? Um, I don't
I mean, he got the
know.
yellow, so
Yeah, I'm thinking before that because I'm sure that's what Afraid was asking about. Definitely after the yellow, that was a thing. But even then, if you're an attacking player like Kid Cowell, if you have a yellow but you're attacking, unless you're really stupid, you're not gonna get a second yellow. Unless the only way that would happen is like you get fouled, the referee doesn't call it, and you retaliate. Which I don't think that's something Kid Cowell would do. But I think
mhm.
it's also like just as the new signing is learning a new system, he's probably feeling the pressure. He's probably trying to make adjustments as well. He's trying to state his case for why
Mhm.
he should continue to start. And, you know, as talented as Kikal is, he is an all star. So is Diego Rossi, and Diego Rossi came off the bench. Like, these things are fluid, and it's a game by game basis. I still think that Kikal, like, when things work out, things didn't work out for him in this game, should be given at least 65 minutes each game. And sometimes he's been subbed out a little bit earlier in the best of times. But Almeida makes the calls, and in the last few games, he's been getting most of those calls right.
Yeah.
Um, I'll put in the Instagram question for you to ask first, and then I'll ask the last one after that. So from Instagram, do you see Jeremy Ebobisse starting right below Kate Cal as a false nine, Danny? Is that something you can envision?
No, not the time, because then where does that leave trophies? Where does that leave other players also there? So
That would have to
I don't
change the
see it.
formation because right now we don't
Yeah,
play
that'll
a
change the whole
formation with a
formation and
cam.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't see it happening anytime soon, unless like he
Mm,
can come into the team and really make a case and really have a huge impact in the front. Granted, this has just started. We're just basing this off one game. So this is definitely one that we have to come back after, maybe after the 2 or 3 games coming up or the 3 games left into this month, maybe September, maybe we can see something towards the end to make that final push for playoffs.
right. And I just thought of something where like it could be an easy formation shift if Almeida decided he wanted to go that role, where
Yeah.
you can either do a 3-4-2-1 in the sense that like rather than like the wingers and the forward, you have like the two attacking midfielders and then the false nine. And then there's a 3-4-1-2, which I know Italy used to use a lot in like the 2014 World Cup,
Hmm.
but that would involve uh, a strike partnership, and I don't think that's what the Instagram question is asking about.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, like we can't always see who asked the Instagram questions, so I apologize if you sent this in and we can't credit you. Feel free to let us know that it was you, and we'll try to give you credit in the future or through a tweet or something. Lastly, my friend, I mentioned him earlier in the show, David Alcaraz, or David Alcaraz. Sorry. I
Mm.
usually call him by his the Spanish pronunciation,
Yeah, yeah.
but asks if LAFC's attack felt like a bigger task to plan for, and I personally thought it would be because that was the one part of LAFC's squad that I was really convinced about. Their goalkeeper situation, it feels like they're still trying to like they haven't really been settled in the goalkeeper spot, even though their current choice, the Salvadoran, sorry, is doing well. The defense we know is in trouble. The midfield is weaker because they let Mark Anthony Kay go or they traded him. One of those things. He's no longer a LAFC player. But the attack, they've got plenty of options. So, and they had two good ones off the bench, even though Latif Blessing is more of a midfielder than an attacker. I still consider him an attacking option. So basically, the Quakes had to deal with two waves of attack. You have to deal with the starters, you have to deal with the subs. And I think it got dicey in the second half, but they dealt with it well.
Yeah.
I hope you, if you did listen to this podcast, I hope you didn't feel too bad about how we covered LAFC. You know, we're still friends.
Yeah.
And now for the closing thought. Before we get to that, might as well thank our sponsors, of course. Roughneck Scarves, official scarf supplier to MLS, USL, US Soccer. Get custom scarves for your group or team at roughneckscarves.com. If you're tired of the same old uniforms and cookie cutter templates from Nike and Adidas, just like Christian Pulisic signed with Puma today, looking for a unique, complete custom kit for
Yeah.
your youth team, Sunday League squad, adult, or pro team, Icarus FC can help you create the kit of your dreams at an affordable price. Probably unlike the Funes Mori one you almost had to buy. Let them help you
Yes,
design your
that's right.
new custom kit today at icarusfc.com. Um, Thankfully, you didn't have to buy that one. I know money is tight these days for all of us in this
Yeah.
pandemic. Who will finish
Yeah.
this season higher? Do you think LAFC can bounce back? Or do you think San Jose Earthquakes will be able to make this turning point stick?
I mean, I feel like the Quakes are definitely going to be turning around, but I don't see them positioning themselves at the end of the season higher than LAFC. I think LAFC just has a little bit more quality when it comes to the players around. So much it hurts me to say this, I feel like I don't see Quakes positioning themselves higher than LAFC, but hey, we'll be right there, right behind them.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a good time to be excited as a Quakes fan, but we still have work to do. And as of
Yeah,
now, I can see the more likely possibility being LAFC. They do what they have to do to right the ship, and maybe the Quakes qualify for the playoffs. They finish 7th or 6th. Then LAFC is maybe like 4th, 5th, or 6th. Like I could see that happening.
yeah,
There's still a lot of moving parts. A lot of teams can go up. A lot of teams can go down. I think we still have some ways to go to be like an LAFC tier club. Like when everyone's healthy, when
yeah,
everything is going optimum, I think there's still some room to grow, but this team is certainly capable of that. They're certainly capable of playing well, and hopefully they do against Vancouver Whitecaps. Just to reiterate, Danny's going with a 1-1 draw. I'm going with a 1-1 win.
yeah.
We'll see what happens. Thanks again for coming on to the podcast. This is a pleasure to talk to
Hey,
you.
hey, I always love hanging out with you guys. So the pleasure is mine.
Yeah, and I know this has been an hour and 40 minutes. Thank you to everyone who stayed with us this long. For me, it flew by. It felt like 30 minutes talking, and
Yeah,
that's how it should be, talking with friends, interacting with the community we have here at the Tectonic Takes podcast. There are social media platforms. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at Tectonic Takes. We got Instagram, we got a Discord server, we got Patreon. All those links will be in the description below. I'll have Danny's social media on the description as well. Take care, everyone,
sure.
and go Quakes.
Okay. See you guys at the games.
Yeah, see you guys in the next game. Bye.